As generative artificial intelligence continues to make strides and make mistakes, we're starting to wonder whether AI needs to be for everyone. Will the great disruption eventually fizzle out? We're going to talk about these questions in the next stage of Gen AI on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Ryan Cox. He is the head of artificial intelligence at Synechron. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks, Keith. Great to be here.
I think I just butchered the name of the company. Is it Synechron or Synechron?
Yeah, Synechron.
Synechron. All right.
Yeah, it was a little.
All right, that's okay. All right, so let's jump right into it. When we talked before the show in our pre-call, Apple had yet to make their announcement around AI, and so the recent announcements they did make are putting AI on this quote-unquote personal intelligence area. We're also seeing dueling trends between companies that are finding success for smaller, niche-oriented, business-oriented use cases. And then we're also seeing surveys that suggests that consumers are basically not really that interested in a lot of these AI tools. So, the question I want to ask on as the leadoff is, do you think that AI might become a business-only technology for these smaller purposes, while general chat and search functions and all of these big search engines that are claiming that AI will solve everything are going to get downplayed? Or is this personal intelligence thing that Apple announced something where we might see end users be more excited about?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's always going to be a little bit of both. I think Gen AI in particular really facilitates that natural human-like interaction. So regardless of if it's personal, regardless if it's business, I think that's really where it's coming to play. And I think that's what Apple's capitalizing on. So they want to introduce that small language model, within the devices themselves. So that's going to be really quick. It's going to allow them to do simple tasks like summarizing things. And that will be, fantastic for the consumer as well. And then I think as you move up the curve in terms of complexity, things will move over to Apple's private cloud compute. So that's going to be a dedicated set of Apple servers. And then finally, I think, Siri, and this is probably what, I and a number of my colleagues as well are excited about, would get a major boost and actually be, really useful as long as you give it the permission to do so. And so I think you'll tend to see everything from the personal side where people are using these tools all the way through to businesses interacting a bit more with specific use cases. I think we'll continue to see both sides advance.
Do you think that you'll see numbers then go up for the number of end users that are either using the tools or finding benefit from it? Or are we even just too early in asking this question because most of us are still in that exploration phase?
I think tools will go up. I think in some degree it might be a little bit abstracted from the end user. And by that I mean, my colleague might pick up their Apple phone and use Siri and not really realize or think through that it's actually using these tools. But I think indirectly they'll be using them. So I think overall usage and that sort of intelligence that Gen AI provides will only trend upwards.
Do you think that most companies are still in that exploration phase, or are you seeing them move closer and closer to real deployment or practical deployment, or these little niche projects that we're seeing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any new technology, we're going to see that mixture. We're going to see, it start off in sort of this proof of concept phase where, you're almost throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. You want to understand, what use cases work both generically across your kind of more broad employee spectrum. And you also want to really challenge smaller parts of the business that might be currently operationally expensive to run, and you want to figure out, can I use AI, safely and the right way in those places to generate value. So I think that's, we'll probably see it from both sides.
So, your company that does a lot of projects with kind of enabling artificial intelligence within certain areas of a company or a platform. And so as you've been going through a lot of these projects, have you seen that generative AI, especially the large language models that a lot of these larger companies are putting out, or these big AI companies, are they getting better results now than maybe what that was seen a couple of years ago, or, not a couple of years ago, like November 2022 or even 2023? Have you seen improvement in the answers you're getting, or is it still just kind of the same and you're just having to tweak, answers based on data sets that the companies have?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're seeing a lot better outputs from these models for probably two main reasons. Number one is the models themselves keep getting better and better. Just take GPT 3.5 to 4. That was a huge step. And supposedly 5 is going to blow us all away. So I think number one is, there's a big output there in terms of, improvement. And then on the other side is just training, experience. Companies are starting to learn, again, to the last question, what they can do, what they can't do kind of safely in the realm of Gen AI. And so because of that, I think they know how to use it a bit better. They've been trained and they've understood the use cases. So I think if you add those two things together, you're seeing a lot better output than we saw even a year ago or 6 months ago even.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned GPT-5 and it's been delayed a lot. It should have been out by now, according to some of those early predictions of when it was coming out. And then at the same time, you see stories about there's not enough data that to train to make these LLMs better, and that should raise a lot of red flags for companies going, this might be the best that we get. And if we do hit a plateau or even some upper cap, what happens to the AI space then? Is it just that we have to accept that these answers might be the best that we're going to get based on the data that we've trained them on? Because there's not like some missing treasure cave of treasure, right? Where there's like, all this data now we have.
Well, I think, it's interesting you say that. I think we're starting to see some companies that are kind of holding on to data and looking at those as a commodity, right? They're selling those, Reddit,
right.
I think it was Financial Times. A couple of the big sources are actually selling, that content. So I think, I think obviously there's an upper limit to how much data you have. I don't think we're there yet. But certainly the quality of data and the output, I think it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. And I think once you start getting, higher quality data in the models, you'll definitely get improvements there. And then I think you're right. There will also be kind of the smaller language models, and we're seeing that with Apple. But we're seeing the smaller language models come in, and they're going to be, faster, cheaper, and more specific use cases. They'll be actually better to use. So I think we'll see a lot more of that come to play as well. You don't always need, this giant large language model for everything that you're doing. So I think you'll see a little bit of both.
Yeah, and the answer to that question, I think, too, depends on whether you're, as an end user, whether you're looking for the 100% accuracy question, you're looking for a correct answer when you ask it. And that's usually in that search engine, or, hey, what temperature should I cook this chicken breast at? That you want a correct answer so that you don't get, a disease or you don't get sick from the cooking. But then there's the other questions where you're looking for a creative answer, or you're looking for creativity, and that doesn't rely on accuracy as much. So I guess the answer to that question is whether or not companies can make sure that they can get those accuracy results right based on the data sets we had. You brought up Reddit, and that was the big case of when Google was recommending that you put glue on pizza to make the cheese not stick, or to make it stick. And that was based on a Reddit post. So, it feels like there still needs to be a lot of work done here to get the LLMs where they're happy. And does more data necessarily mean that you're going to get better data?
I mean, I think almost by definition, more data, and particularly if we kind of go through that exercise of higher quality data, should mean that there are more sort of areas to pull from. But you're right, you could kind of get into a situation where everybody's saying the wrong thing, and then there's no way really for these models to kind of understand or differentiate that. Sort of a problem with I guess people in general, right? If everybody's saying the wrong thing, what truly is right? I think models kind of fall into that. I think, you mentioned it exactly as well. I mean, to me, perfect's the enemy of the good. You can't be perfect with all aspects. You're not going to get to 100% on every answer, but I think you want to continue to maintain that, human in the loop or humans on the loop, so that people are aware of what the models are saying, what data they're trained on. And I think it also depends on the use cases. I think some use cases are better serviced to be creative, as you said, and some you actually just want a really, really accurate answer. And for those, you're going to want to actually attribute to the source of where that data came from, where that answer came from, so that as a person you can verify that. But I don't think that's any different than, if you were to go, to a judge and talk about, law and decide on a case, you're going to be asked to quote, legal precedent and understand, what's been said and where it's been said.
Yeah. Do you think that we as end users need to lower our expectations about what generative AI can do and can't do? I think with all of the hype that we get, there's this giant assumption that we're working towards some artificial general intelligence, and a lot of people are like, well, how do we get from this point to that point? It seems like there's a giant, chasm that you have to jump over that we're not getting there yet. So maybe it's on our end. Do we need to lower our expectations?
Yes, I think we do.
There's a great answer.
I don't think LLMs and transformers are going to be the final solution to AGI. I don't think it's going to take us there. I think it's a stepping stone, and I think it's a great glue that helps us, humans and machines talk, and it's a big leap forward. But as of now, for me personally, I'll treat it like a new intern just showed up to the job, not really sure how they're going to perform. I'll double check their work, and in some areas they'll be really strong, they'll be really good, and I'll follow that without as much checking, and in other areas, I'll say, I'm gonna go in solo on this one. So I think overall expectations shouldn't be with the super AI is here and can answer everything with 100%.
All right. So is the next step for a lot of these companies moving to multimodal AI, which is, where you give it a question and it doesn't just give you an answer, it gives you an answer and then says, well, all right, now do something. So is that the next step? And maybe that will get more consumers interested in this technology. So it's more like I tell my AI, when is a great time for me to fly, and also then book the ticket, I guess would be the next step, right?
Yeah. I think there's probably 2 or 3 big threads that are all happening. So sort of this, agentic AI where you have AIs as little agents that are all doing things for you. I think the ability to kind of swap between these models, to orchestrate and say, I want to use this model instead of this model, or this agent instead of this agent. I think we'll start. Then you'll start to be able to pick and choose. Which one is better at math? Which one is better at booking your airline ticket? Which one is better at writing a creative essay? I think that's going to be a really big step. But yeah, certainly, I think it'll be interesting to see with Siri in particular, having access to parts of your phone and even potentially your operating system. There's going to be that balance of privacy, and there's going to be that sort of excitement of, all right, go off and get some of this stuff done for me. But it's got to be, safe, and you gotta have a bit of agency on the human side as well. I've got to know, what are these models doing? Are they acting in my best interest? And do I still have a bit of a say in all of it?
Yeah. How long do you think that'll take for companies to get to that point where they're happier with some of these agents doing additional things beyond just answering questions or coming up with a poem?
Well, exactly. I think it depends what those agents are doing. If it's writing a poem, people are happy now. I think overall, I'd say probably 2 years. I think everything will be in a state where we're probably very happy under most situations that AI is doing the right things. And by that the models will have improved, our training and our experience will have improved. And we'll understand a little bit better on how to use these things and what guardrails to put in place.
Yeah.
So we do things like model validation frameworks that, check to see, is the model doing the right thing? It's almost like, how do you test the model over time? So things like that will be important. We'll have, a year or two to build that kind of stuff up. And I think we'll get better at using them.
Yeah. So I want to jump back to the accuracy question. This made me think of something else that, does the business world need 100% accuracy for its projects, whether it's a niche project or maybe even a larger type of scenario, or are they willing to kind of jump down? Because in the tech world, there was always the whole 5 nines, 99.999% of uptime. Do you think that they need that in accuracy? Because even Tim Cook, I think, when he was talking about their personal intelligence stuff, said we're never going to get to 100%. I think most people think that that's kind of like the holy grail that you'll never get.
Yeah.
So at what point do business leaders then have to go, all right, what's an acceptable percentage? Because we even saw some news stories about companies that were trying to use AI for voice ordering at fast food. And the numbers were, I think, under 90%, which was just all sorts of inaccurate orders, which frustrated a lot of these restaurants that were deploying it. So you have to be at least 95 or higher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the real test is it better than a human? So if humans could only hear at like 80% and it was a really bad drive-through, you'd actually be happy with 90%. You'd be like, all right, maybe this thing can read lips.
But wouldn't you work on improving the speaker system and then in the hardware so that you could hear better rather than trying to replace it with an artificial intelligence?
Well, I think that's the exact point. I think you asked the point about business leaders. I think business leaders are just always going to be looking at the ROI. As you get closer and closer to 100%, cost increases, and your speed is actually probably going to decrease as well. So there's going to be a trade-off. So it's really going to depend on what you're doing, what the use case is, and what that trade-off is. Do you want to spend more money, and how good is it compared to what you're doing today and what humans can do at scale? If you're doing something like listening to call center scripts where, in a number of industries, you might only get 5-10% of those call centers, reviewed, and you can actually push that up to 100% are reviewed, maybe with 95% accuracy, but hey, you're covering a lot more in the same amount of time. That's actually a great trade-off.
Yeah.
So I think there are use cases where it's absolutely fine to settle for under 100%.
Okay. And when you talk to business leaders in some of the projects that you work on, are they demanding 100% accuracy, or are they like, well, we'll live with a hallucination every now and then?
I think they always start with 100% accuracy, and then
why not, right? Like.
Everyone wants 100%. I mean, that's like, I'll be honest, a number of banks that I've worked with, you look at DR, disaster recovery. It's changed a bit now today, but let's go back 10, 20 years. You talk to the business and of course they'd say, yes, I want disaster recovery. And then you tell them the price tag and they'd be like, well, actually, we can do like half of it and we'll kind of figure out what we need to do. But joking aside, I think it's the same sort of trade-offs here. Of course, you want to start with 100%, and then you start going down the value chain and start saying, well, okay, you can get this and not this, and we can give you this and not that, and you find that sweet spot. And I think that's where, if you look at AI as a value lever, you'll do a lot better than if you just kind of look at it as a solution for everything.
Now, Ryan, you're involved in artificial intelligence, so obviously you monitor the market space and the industry. So this is going to be a general, broad question. Who do you feel right now is at the top of the AI leaderboard if you had to rank them? Do you see this as a big tech company only? Do you see small startups that are entering the space that you look at them and go, yeah, they've got some legs, or is it just going to be the big boys for a while? And is this going to change anytime soon?
I think it's changing rapidly, but if I had to pick one, I would still say Microsoft probably has the slight edge. Just in terms of early adopters, Azure OpenAI was top of the leaderboard for a long time. Very cheap, easy to implement. They integrated it really quickly within, obviously their Azure enterprise kind of layer. So it just made a lot of sense for, financial and time to market for all of these companies to do proof of concepts with Gen AI. Now, as you kind of leave Gen AI, and then as you start to go towards enterprise strategy, where some clients might be with some of the other big cloud providers, or with the Googles and the Amazons, it is changing a bit. And then people are kind of looking at, all right, well, how do these different models compare, and which one should I use? But I think if you were to put a scoreboard and just say, proof of concepts, where are we today on the enterprise side? I'd probably give the edge to Microsoft. I think some of the smaller ones will be interesting as some of the small language models, come out, and people are going to be looking, once they productionize their solutions, people are going to be looking to say, well, I need a model validation framework. I need some guardrails. I need some, better pieces that are probably a layer around what just some of these big, the big boys, as you said, are putting together. So I think we'll start to see some more niche solutions, but probably not for another 4 or 6 months.
Do you still see a lot of clients in your space that are going after what we call the low hanging fruit? Like it's the easy win, the quick one is it feels like chatbots. Like that's the big, let's add AI to our existing chatbot, or figure out, the question and answer thing for either internal employees or even public facing stuff. You don't see a lot of these big ambitious projects yet, or have you, and they just haven't launched?
I think low hanging fruit with any new technology is going to be the safe play, because you want to prove some stuff out. You want to get some quick wins. You want to secure your budget cycle by showing these wins and not just it being vaporware. So I think we're seeing that. I wouldn't limit it just to chat though. We're definitely seeing a lot of other creative solutions. We're seeing a lot of web interfaces. We're seeing a lot of integration points between systems, because Gen AI is really good at kind of connecting humans and sort of different data sources and different systems. So because of that, I think you're seeing it in a lot of places other than just chat. But certainly people are also familiar with chat. They know how it works. So that can be a good starting point as well. Yeah,
what we see in our spaces a lot is transcription services, where you kind of run this audio clip or this video clip through a transcriber, and you get the transcript, but a human still has to go in and check, get rid of the ums, get rid of all of the stupid things I say in between the questions and the answers. Because I never talk in complete sentences. So that is it really necessarily saving me time? I guess it is saving me, because then I don't have to type out the whole transcript myself. But yeah, it certainly isn't. It is adding more time. All right. Anyway, this is questions going nowhere. So next one: does the world get better if AI ends up fading in the background and we get kind of an AI inside, like the old Intel Inside logo? Or does this go against the general hype machine that you see from AI, where you have to make sure that you put AI up front and center in order to keep that momentum going? Or do you see it kind of not fizzling, but fading into the background, and everything will just have AI in it and users won't care anymore?
Yeah, I guess I see it a little bit more on that scenario, kind of like the Internet of Things, where it's like everyone talks about it for a while and then it just kind of fades into the background. I mean, any good technology is going to just be doing its job without kind of making itself, horribly aware, making you aware of its presence every 2 seconds. Not to say as we transition into this kind of new paradigm that we're not going to see AI front and center. We're not going to still kind of see, the big changes in front of us. But I think that's good. It gives us a chance to pause, reflect, question, see what's working, and see kind of ethically as well, ethical, responsible AI. Are we actually doing the right things? So I think for big step changes, we'll see AI front and center. But in general, I hope anyway, it kind of fades into the background and just does its job like any technology hopefully should.
Yeah, this reminds me of another question. When we're looking at and listening to a lot of the AI leaders out there, it feels like we're always listening to the business people, whether it's Sam Altman or Elon Musk or or Mark Zuckerberg. It's the big tech leaders, and they're just trying to sell us something. And it feels like when you are only listening to the salespeople, it feels like you get a hucksterism effect of, well, they're going to say whatever they want about how great AI is, and the people that are on the sidelines going, the emperor has no clothes, the emperor has no clothes, like they get ignored. So should we as end users and businesses, listen to other voices other than these people that are, with the big giant $ sale sign?
They should listen to you, Keith.
Thank you. That's all I was really pushing for. Was that they all should listen to me. I'm usually the guy on the sideline going, hold on, wait up. But yeah, go ahead. Other than me.
Hold up the sign.
Yeah, other than me, who should people be listening to?
I think like anything, there's, and this is the safe answer. I'm sorry, but it really is kind of get that. I know I'm laughing before I even say it, but it really is that kind of getting all sides that can attribute their source and kind of give you a view. Like there's the academic view, some of the, what are researchers and professors doing, there's obviously what, Elon, I'd put him in his own camp. I wouldn't even put him next to some of the other entrepreneurs. I still haven't figured out what he's selling yet, other than maybe Mars. But I think it's important to take in a number of different, views and insights, because that's how we learn. And we're so early in this curve that there isn't one voice that's saying all the right things. I think you have to actually pick and choose, and different parts are going to get different people excited as well. And hopefully we keep building on those ideas, and the whole field will continue to expand. But I think some parts will go faster than others.
Like even within a company that's exploring the use of AI, is there a role within the company that lends itself to higher authority around this? Is it the head of AI at a company, or is it this, what's the new term? Intelligence center, or what's the center of excellence, I think is the new term.
Yes.
Where you're grabbing people from without, the entire company and having a little subcommittee meeting. Are those the people that we listen to? Is it the CEO? I mean, it's half the time, I don't know if the CEO is the person that needs to talk about AI.
Well, interesting. I was just reading an article that was talking about CEOs are more engaged on big AI decisions than in many of the other recent technology trends. So I think it is a fact that it's literally percolating up to the board, to the CEO to get involved, because these are fast moving big decisions that need to be made. In terms of a company, I think a lot of companies are kind of looking at like a CTO, CIO type roles to be looking at their systems holistically from a tech and business perspective, and seeing where the right points are. I think anyone who's kind of only looking at AI for AI's sake is probably going to be biased, and as you said, anyone who's selling AI for AI's sake is going to be biased. So
sure,
I think you have to look at the value in the business returns, and that goes back to your point on low hanging fruit. That's why people are doing it. They want to see those results so they can make informed decisions on what's the next thing that we should spend on. Yeah,
I also want to circle back to our original question about whether or not AI needs to be for everyone. Is there any danger in a company just deciding, we're not ready, or I don't like the way this is going, or we just don't get the results that we think we need, or it's like this fast food company, or they're like, yeah, it didn't work, or it's not working. Is there a danger in ignoring the AI, or someone just deciding, I don't need AI at this moment?
Yeah, I think there's a big danger.
So you're on the hype train then, Ryan.
I'm on the realistic hype train. I don't think it's going to change everything overnight, and we're suddenly going to have super AI.
I don't think you would be calling it a realistic. You wouldn't be calling it a realistic hype train. It would be called the realistic train, or we're a little slower than the hype train. Hype train goes really fast.
I'd say a realist is maybe 5 out of 10. A hype train is 10 out of 10. Okay. Maybe give me an 8 out of 10.
All right.
But I buy into a lot because I've seen what it can do, but certainly it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to do everything, and I think you have to keep the human in the loop to be sort of responsible in making the right decisions. But really to your point, is there a danger? Yeah, I think there is a danger, because the companies that aren't doing it are going to be missing out to the companies that are doing it. Because I think the current meme that's making the circles is AI is not going to replace your job, but a person using AI is going to replace you.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that too. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm a company that that's not doing AI, and I'm looking at all the companies that are doing AI, but all of these other companies that are doing AI just fail miserably, or they spend a lot of money, then I could just come out and go, well, look at all the money I've saved by not doing it, and now I have all this extra money to maybe do it right, or do something in a different direction with technology.
Yeah, but I guess if you looked at all the factories that held on to steam power as opposed to electricity, and asked them how they're doing it, you're probably not going to get the best response there either. But I think, like with any new technology, I'm not saying spend 90% of your IT budget on IT, but if you aren't exploring, if you're just going to turn the tap off and not do anything, I think you are going to miss out. A number of industry studies are showing for roughly 40% improvements in terms of productivities for most aspects of many white collar jobs. So if you look at those metrics and let's say you kind of plug in a small bit of your IT budget, I mean, that's going to pay back in dividends, and I think it will continue to kind of be almost like a perpetual cycle where, as you get more and more, down the line, you're going to advance. And at some point, I don't think people will catch up.
All right.
So I think you have to invest.
All right. I've got one person that doesn't need AI, and it's probably my grandmother. She probably doesn't need AI because, again, I don't want to take the time to explain all of these. We're still trying to work on getting them to use a smartphone and a tablet, so maybe it'll take AI a little bit longer, or maybe I could get some robot at some point will explain AI to her. So maybe I'm just trying to get back to this whole, is AI for everyone? All right. So did we solve anything here, Ryan? Did we solve?
I think at the end of the day, find your use case, figure out where the ROI is, and start exploring.
I just remembered my last question. Do you feel like AI is getting a free pass from the ROI side of the business, the accountants? I keep waiting for accountants in a company to going, wait, you've spent how much on this project and you're not really seeing the results. I mean, we did kind of see it in this fast food example that I was talking about. McDonald's shut down its program. They're obviously looking in another direction. They're not giving up completely on it, but you are starting to see some pushback from maybe the finance side of the business. Or is it all of these investors that are putting all of this money into AI companies that will start pulling the plug, and then we might see a pullback?
I think like any R&D budget, you got to be sensible. I think again, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. But I think you have to kind of use it and explore. I think AI is getting a little bit of a free pass, but I think any new technology gets that same sort of initial, hey, this is interesting. Let's see what we can do with it. Don't worry about the full spend yet. But I think as long as you fail fast and you approach it in a sensible way that has kind of, milestones, checkpoints, and you don't just kind of, wait a year before you show people what you've done, you're hopefully you should be able to come up with some success stories that, that kind of give you the runway to then get more money and investments because you're building on that as you go. So a little bit of a free pass, but I think it's fine.
I just think of the poor people that were hyping up blockchain and even metaverse technologies. They're just sitting in the back of the room going, what about us? Like, we had this great stuff too. You ditched us after about 6 months, and it's always like the best looking person at the dance. They always get a free pass. They always get the the dances versus these other people that are against the wall, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's still utility in those other technologies. Well, metaverse, I'm not sure where that's going these days. But
we have episodes around that too, so just kind of watch our previous episodes about metaverse stuff.
All right, yeah. We'll do. All
right, right. Yeah. Any other final thoughts?
I think it's just exciting times. The fact that we're here talking about this and already kind of like thinking, if you imagined a couple years ago to be talking about, where we are and how we're doing it and how we're approaching AI in a business sense, I think it's just really impressive how fast and how far we've become. And to the point about your grandma, I think there's going to be those things behind the scenes that should hopefully help her connect the dots without her ever knowing about it. That's the real dream with technology.
Yeah. I hope so. All right, Ryan. Again, thanks again for joining us on the show. And AI is the gift that keeps on giving in terms of content for our show. So I appreciate you being on the show.
It is the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate, and it was a pleasure being here.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.